still looking forward to it. It has some meaning for the Rams as far as seeding and who they will play, whether they will have to play the Minnesota-Detroit loser or Green Bay or Washington. So there's some definite meaning there for the Rams, and always fun to get two division rivals. We actually had the first game this year, the overtime game,
right,
between the Seahawks and Rams in Seattle. So looking forward to it nonetheless.
Well, I want to come back to that game here in a minute. Let's first just focus on this one. And, you just said it. The Rams have something to play for. You would think that playing Green Bay or Washington would be, not that there's an easy road in the playoffs, but avoiding, either Minnesota or Detroit would be a good thing. Any surprise that they're going to, it sounds like, start Garoppolo?
It sounds like that's the plan. And, teams around the league have to balance that. Do we want to try and help as far as setting up who our opponent's going to be, or do we want to stay away from injuries, right? We're seeing it in Philadelphia with Saquon Barkley not playing when he had an opportunity to set the record. And we've seen it through the years, and I know the Rams rested some players last year as well in a similar type situation. So you kind of see both sides of it. Maybe they feel they have a good chance to win anyway, even by not playing certain players. And if they win, then they don't have to play Detroit or Minnesota in game one. On the other hand, if one of the stars gets hurt, then I'm sure the coaching staff would be second-guessed as well. So there's really two sides to it, and sounds like it'll be Jimmy Garoppolo starting for the Rams on Sunday.
What can you learn about a team that has come as close as the Seahawks have in sort of this one last game? I won't use the word meaningless, but obviously it doesn't affect their playoff standing. What can you learn about the Seahawks in those 60 minutes?
Well, I think, every player and coach, you still want to win the game. For the players, they're putting themselves out there on film, and some of them will be looking for other jobs next year. So, you want to go out with that winning feeling. And, it's crazy, as I'm sure, you guys have been talking about all week, that it came down to the fifth tiebreaker. If the Seahawks win this game, they get to 10 wins. They have the same record as the Rams. They would have the same division record, the same conference record, and it comes down to that fifth tiebreaker, which is the strength of victory, as far as the opponents that they played and beat this year. So it was that close. But when you look at the Seahawks, under a first-year head coach, I've always been impressed with Mike Macdonald. Had a chance to talk to him a couple of times in Baltimore last year, and you look at the start they got off to 3-0, and we did the game in New England week 2. Ironically, we've had two of the three Seahawk games our crew has worked this year have gone to overtime. The win in New England and then the loss to the Rams. We also had them in Atlanta, which raised the record to 4-3. That was after the 3-game win streak. So, a bit up and down, but you talk about resiliency, win the first 3, lose the next 3, but then you have that 4-game winning streak as well in late November, early December. So they're a fun team to watch, a fun team to call. Like I said, we had 3 of their games this year, and they won 2 of them. So
you're talking to Kenny Albert here, and you said you had 3 times with the Seahawks. Mike Macdonald, we talk with him every week, every Monday after the game, so we've sort of gotten a chance to meet him sort of on the air. What has been your perception of him with the production meetings you've had off the air?
Yeah, I think anyone that, comes out of the Harbaugh tree, having worked for both John Harbaugh in Baltimore and Jim Harbaugh at Michigan, you could tell just how buttoned up he is, as far as the leadership, being the leader of a team and taking this head coaching job and using a lot of the things that he learned, during those previous stints. And, obviously he's a young guy getting an opportunity as a head coach at a young age, but he's been really impressive. You look at his team last year in Baltimore that led the league in fewest points allowed, sacks, takeaways, the success that they had there with the Ravens. And, I think the Seahawks are certainly in good shape moving forward with Mike Macdonald and his staff.
You call games in all 4 of the major sports, and by the way, I love you doing hockey. That's always been one of my favorites, is to listen to you do a hockey game. But when you've met with coaches and managers around all 4 sports, who are some of the best, or maybe more importantly, what are some of the traits you think they have in common that stand out to you across the different sports?
And I appreciate the kind words, and just coming off the Winter Classic in Chicago on Tuesday, and we had a great time in Seattle for the same event last year.
Yep.
The Kraken shutout win last January 1st. when they beat the Golden Knights in the Winter Classic. But, certain coaches in all sports, you could just sense, whether it's, back in the day, a Bill Parcells or a Bill Belichick in recent years, just coaches that just have that it factor where the team's going to listen when they walk into the room, and we've certainly seen it in all sports. The production meetings that we have, and I've been doing this for 31 years now with the NFL on Fox, and I'll never forget our first game. The first game I ever worked in the NFL was the Rams and the Cardinals back in '94, and just being so intimidated when Buddy Ryan walked into the room and Chuck Knox. They were the two head coaches, legendary head coaches, and I was a young broadcaster at the time. My color analyst was young, and they're probably looking around like, who are these guys? But, then in the more recent years, you start to build relationships, and you see a lot of the younger coordinators who get opportunities as head coaches, which is kind of neat. So, but you could sense, like I said, in all the sports, being around some of those top coaches, why they've had the success that they have had through the years.
Where does authenticity rank in that? It feels anyway as if that is one of the things that's been most helpful for Mike Macdonald this year. We know he's smart. We know he runs defense that everybody, raved about in Baltimore, and we've seen the effect this year in Seattle, how much better their defense has been than the last few. But his authenticity really jumps out to me.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a big part of it. There's a trust factor that goes into it when we have these meetings with the coaches and you start to build up relationships with them. I remember back in the day, Jeff Fisher used to actually share some potential trick plays with us that he was going to use in the game. And in some cases, we did see those plays. Bill Belichick, for example, you pretty much know that he's not going to share too much information about his current team. But if you get him going on historical stuff, he's tremendous. Whether it's talking about Lawrence Taylor, their time together with the New York Giants, his time coaching with Bill Parcells, talking about the Naval Academy team back in 1964 with Roger Staubach when his father was an assistant coach and young Bill was a ball boy. So, all of these coaches are different, but with Belichick, if you get him going on football history, you could sit there for hours with him and just soak it all in.
I spent one terrible year interviewing Bill once a week on WEEI after each game. And
right, he's not going to share much during those segments.
It was truly awful. Kenny, it was awful. The only thing you could do was after 5 minutes of him refusing to answer questions, be like, so, Lawrence Taylor? And you're right. He would be off and running. Yep. He actually told me something really interesting that year, though, is we were, I think, talking about Tom Landry and the old Cowboys defenses. And he said, one of the reasons they were so good is they brought back the same guys year after year and made it so complicated that only they could do it. He said things have changed so much with free agency that now it's all about simplicity. How can you get your guys or anybody on your team who might have to come into the game at any moment to be able to run the same defense without having 8, 10, 12 years to practice it together?
Right. Another great point.
He's interesting. How close are the Seahawks? You said they're right there with the Rams. Could this be not just a playoff team, but a Super Bowl contender next year?
I think so. I mean, like I said, if they win this game, they have the same record as the Rams, who are going to the playoffs as the division winner. Arizona certainly took a step this year. San Francisco took a step back, a team that went to the Super Bowl last year. So the division was just so close. I think 5 weeks ago, you probably could have said that any of the four teams could wind up as the winner of the NFC West.
Yeah. All right. Well, Kenny, we appreciate it. Thank you for taking some time. We'll look forward to you doing a fourth Seahawks game this weekend and continued good luck. We appreciate it.
All right, Mike. Really appreciate it. Happy New Year.